what's up you guys? It's Simon. Welcome back to my channel. So recently one of you guys on TikTok asked if I could do an eye tutorial, and I thought that that would be a really cool thing to do because I have an eye tutorial on this channel, but it is really old, really outdated, and just generally not good. So I thought it would be really fun to make an updated video that's more accurate to my style and also just better explained in general. But before we get into that, as with all of my tutorials, I do want to say take everything that I say with a grain of salt because I am no expert. Obviously, I'm not a master. I am obviously still learning alongside all of you guys, but because you guys are asking for an eye tutorial, I'm assuming you want to see how I personally do things, which is exactly what this video is going to be. Obviously there's things that change depending on your art style, but this is just how I personally do things. So let's get straight into it. So the first thing that I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about is placement. So placement is one of those things that I know a lot of beginner artists struggle with. I know my first illustrations were kind of looking pointy-chinned, big anime eyes, too close together, too far apart, you know, too big, things like that. So something that has really helped me in regards to both placement and sizing and things like that of the eyes when creating an illustration. And I did talk a bit about this in my face tutorial as well if you need a little bit more of an in-depth explanation. But basically what I do is this little trick. So say let's say this shape over here is an eye and this is half an eye. So we're gonna draw the head a la every single how to draw anime tutorial with the classic circle, the line in between, and then in the lower half of the face. And then I'm going to just draw a little jawline. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is, of course, just a sketch. I'm going to throw some ears on there as well because it just helps me sort of with the general placement. And then I'm going to make another line right here sort of in between the ears, and that is going to help me place it. And I might also sometimes throw like an additional line here, but generally it's just this sort of shape. And then I'm going to change the color so that you guys are able to see how exactly I'm doing this. So we're going to start with our half shape on the side of the face because generally on the average face your eyes begin about a half eye's length away from the face. And then we're going to do another eye shape, and then your eyes are also generally another eye's width apart, and then of course the other eye and the half. So this is something that actually does change from person to person as well. This is just the sort of average placement, but there are of course people who have their eyes further apart or closer together. So one thing you want to keep in mind if you're someone that's maybe perhaps trying to capture somebody's likeness, if you're doing for example, a piece of fan art or a commission, keep in mind that, you know, again, like it's said, it does vary from person to person, so you want to pay close attention to that. But if you're just trying to get sort of a base illustration, you're not trying to capture anybody's likeness, then that is the way to go. In my personal experience, it really makes sure that my eyes are not like too wide, not too low down on the face, not too high, things like that. This is just the general placement, and that has really helped me improve my artwork. So the next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the shape of the eye. So obviously, again, this is another thing that varies from person to person. One thing that I would strongly recommend is always looking at references, even if it's for something really simple, and really study what that individual part of the face is and what it does and how the different parts, so for example we're working with eyes, so how the different parts of the eye move, that is always going to be really helpful. But how I personally do things, usually if I'm just going to work with a neutral expression here first before we get into actual expressions. So I tend to work with this little almondy shape, and I work with an almond shape for every type of eye shape, whether that's somebody who's a little bit more monolided or somebody who of course like has a double eyelid. The thing that changes about this almond shape is how narrow or how wide it is, and that's also something that varies based upon expression. But I always work with this general almond shape. Of course, there are different eye shapes that exist. Again, I would strongly recommend looking at Pinterest, for example. Different ethnicities also have different eye shapes, so that's something that you can experiment with if you're someone that's looking to do a little bit more realism. I don't know. Oh, my voice sounds a little weird right now. Sorry about that. But yeah, different ethnicities can have different eye shapes. But again, different people within the same ethnicity can also have a different eye shape. So if you're worried about likeness, focus on the individual person. But if you're just trying to stylize things, you know, you can do kind of whatever you want. So this is what my base sort of eye looks like. It's just this little almond shape. And then I will from time to time, like say I'm like doing like a really rough sketch and it's something like this. And I say, oh, well, I did this really pointy in the corner, so that kind of wants me, or like makes me want to add a tear duct and the waterline. And so I occasionally might do that, but sometimes I don't. I will, however, say that if I do include the tear duct, I also will always include a little bit of the corner of the waterline. I will never have one or the other. It's always either both or neither for me. So I'm gonna erase that so we can focus back on this one over here. So I'm going to add the tear duct in the corner because it does look like I had a little bit of a loose line following that one. So I'm gonna add the waterline in as well. So the next thing that is something that changes in regards to shape is the expression. So again, this is why I recommend, I'm gonna say Pinterest so many times in this video, but Pinterest. Expression boards are so helpful. There's also, of course, the expression challenges. If you are somebody who does stylized artwork, I am sure you have seen quite a few like expression challenges, which are basically just like a column of letters and numbers that correspond to varying expressions, and you can challenge yourself to draw that said expression, or you can have your followers challenge you to draw a certain character doing a certain expression, which is also something I would really recommend if you're going through art block. Very helpful. But yeah, that's also something that can help you sort of challenge to make your expressions a little bit more varied. But the way that they affect the eye shape is what we're going to get into. So this is like, I would say, just a neutral sort of expression, not anything changing in variation to like the iris or the eyelids in any way, but something that here, let's do a little example, Looney. So when you're sad, that's something that really affects, I would say, like the lower eyelid. So that's gonna come up a little bit more. It might lower this eyelid up here, and you can already see in the red line how that's changed the shape. So that's why I mentioned to look at references, because you can really look and say, okay, if a person is doing, so this sad expression, you can see how the eyelid moves, how the eyebrow might move, and we will get into eyebrows a little bit in the, not in the future, but in the future of this video. But yeah, you can see how the eye shape can vary based on that. When I'm drawing, I work a lot from just like imagination. How I would imagine a certain expression to change the eye shape, so it's hard to kind of explain what kind of shapes I'm using and why I'm doing certain things, but also at the same time that imagination comes from studying references. If you also maybe aren't like comfortable using references, or just don't like to use them in general, you can use your own face as a reference. You can get like a mirror, like a small mirror that can sit on your desk that you can look at, and then you can make those expressions in the mirror and show off sort of like the things that you would find and of course reference photos, but it's with your own face, so you might be a little bit more comfortable doing that. But yeah, so expression really changes the eye shape. So this is I guess a base sort of like sad expression, how it would change that. If someone was angry, it might also do a similar thing. I tend to scrunch up the eye a little bit more when somebody's angry, so I'll bring the eyelid in a little bit closer to like the top part of the eye, but I'll keep the lower eyelid a little bit further. I might change the eyebrow so that it pushes downwards rather than upwards like it was if it were sad. And then also I might add like a little bit of a wrinkle where your brow bone would be, because it is like, I suppose, putting pressure on that sort of area. So yeah, just try to pay attention to, I say the main thing that really changes an expression are a few things. That would be the eyebrows, the eyelids, and also the iris. So, or not the iris, the pupil. So for example, if somebody was super happy, I would do something like this. I would make the eyes a little bit more open, a little bit rounder even as well. And then I would, you know, throw the iris in there, throw the pupil, might make it a little bit larger. I'd arc the eyebrow a little bit so that, oh, I don't know what I just did. Arc the eyebrow a little bit so that it looks like maybe they're excited or happy or something like that. But you can see how that really opens up the eye and makes it a little bit, you know, excited looking. However, that expression could drastically change if I were to take the pupil and make it smaller. So making the pupil smaller then changes it to something that looks a little bit more frightened. Your eyes dilate different types of ways depending on the certain thing that you're looking at. So certain things might make your pupils really wide, others might make them really tiny. Things that can do that are like certain levels of, I guess, sadness. If something like really dramatic happened that really affected you, that might be something that changes the what is the word? Radius, sure, radius of your pupil, or something, of course, something scary happens that also affects it. Yeah, your mood really varies. I'm so sorry if you guys are shaking. I got a new tripod that makes it a little bit better for more angles. However, it's also really wibbly wobbly. I'm working on it. But yeah, so something to really keep in mind, as well as your pupil. But those are the main things that are going to change based on expression, and therefore change how you draw your eye. The next thing that I want to get into is eyebrows, because again, eyebrows are also something that really change the eye, but I also just want to talk a little bit about how I stylize them as well. So I'm going to come back to this sort of neutral eye as well. Something you do want to keep in mind, again, if you're capturing likeness, despite it not really seeming like it, eyebrows are also something that really vary from person to person. People have some might have really thin eyebrows, some have really thick eyebrows, some have wacky shapes. If you've shaved your eyebrows off, I know I personally have thought about it. I'm not brave enough to do it, but the people who are, your eyebrows look dope. But yeah, that really can change a lot. So again, if you're trying to capture likeness, keep in mind what the person's general thing are. So the things that I would keep in mind are the shape of the eyebrow. So the shape could be, is it straight? Is it rectangular? Where does the arc sit? So like, I'd say my base, like sort of default eyebrow looks something like that, where it has like a firm arch and then kind of like a longer tail, kind of like you see on like those perfect like Instagram brows and things like that. Let me make it a little thicker up here so it's in the right place. But my eyebrows, for example, so when I am looking at my face, my eyebrows arc way towards the bottom. It's like really weird. It's like my arc is at such a strange point. It's like really far back and then it arcs like just a tiny bit, and it looks really weird. It kind of makes my eyebrows look, or actually no, I think my arc might be a little bit more towards like here. My husband always calls them like little triangles. They kind of look like that because my arc is in such a weird spot. Or arch. Is it arch? I think it's your arch. Your arch is in, my arch is in an interesting spot. But yeah, so that's something that can vary. So keep in mind where their arch is, if they have one at all. Some people have really, really straight eyebrows, which is also something to keep in mind. They might have really thick eyebrows, really sparse eyebrows, things like that. So just generally, if you're trying to capture likeness, keep that in mind. But if I'm going for my default eyebrow, like I said, I'll just sort of sketch like this straight line, and then this part at the bottom will sort of curve up a little bit towards that, and then I'll just make like sort of a basic like tail, I suppose. It's not really anything too fancy. And then if you're somebody who wears makeup, this step will be really easy for you. It's just like little feathery points at the tip of the eyebrow so that it doesn't look so boxy, so opaque, because again, the tip of your eyebrows are a little bit sparser than, say, like, I guess the body of your eyebrows. So yeah, I just make them a little bit feathery towards this top, but then at the ends, I will fill it in pretty much almost completely solidly. And then as I get closer to the tip, I feather it a bit more. And then one thing that I will do if I am painting, for example, let me fill this in a little bit. I will put on my base color. We're gonna go with a lighter blue, just to see. Can I even see that? What happened? I'm gonna make this, that's white. That's why. I thought it was light blue. I'm having a little bit of trouble seeing you guys because the sun's shining right on my iPad, so hopefully you guys can see this well. But yeah, so let's make this a little brighter. See, this is my base color. Once I've got all of my shading down and have finished painting everything that I am going to paint, I will merge this layer on top of that, but I'm not going to merge it because I got other stuff to do with this eyeball. But yeah, so I would merge it down, and then I'll take the smudge tool and I will blend out this bit, make it a little bit bigger. I'll blend it out so that it looks a little bit more faded, a little bit more painterly, and then I feel like I've lost a little bit too much detail in that portion of the eyebrow. I'll just add in a few more feathery strokes because I do still want it to look feathery, but I also want it to look a little bit more natural, and I just feel like doing that fade does make it a little bit more natural. Again, if you're somebody that wears makeup and fills in your eyebrows, it's kind of the same as making sure the front is really feathered and smoothed, and like kind of like a gradient, if that makes sense. So yeah, I will sort of do something like that. And again, just like we talked about in the eye shape, eyebrows will also change based on your expression. They might arc or arch certain different ways. They might push down or up or all of that. They might like furrow a little bit, if you've seen that or heard that word. I'm sure you have. But yeah, so just keep that in mind. Keep in mind the expression as well and how that can change the eye, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's generally how I do eyebrows. And then the final thing that I'm going to talk about is color, and then like kind of lashes, and also a little bit of a doodly style that I use to make, or how I draw, like, I guess my comics, because I do little short comics occasionally, and I don't do those as rendered because it would take forever. So yeah, first thing that I'm going to talk about is the lashes. So lashes are something that I do because I struggle with same face syndrome very much. So if I'm trying to draw a masculine or feminine character, and this does not mean a male or female character, I'm talking aesthetically masculine or aesthetically feminine, or even androgynous. Of course, there is, like, you know, presentation is on a spectrum, just as almost everything is. But yeah, so if I'm drawing a character that is a little bit more masculine, then I either do not draw eyelashes or I draw very like short ones, because again, I really struggle with same face syndrome, and a lot of the characters that I draw tend to look feminine, so that is just something that I do to distinguish them from a more feminine character. However, if I am drawing a character that is feminine presenting, then I will do like these big sort of like triangle eyelashes, and I might like include like a little swoop of eyeliner. So that's just something I just like flick onto the end, kind of like a classic like wing or cat eye, and then I might thicken up the top lash line a little bit more, because again, like the top part of the eye is what I would consider to be the lash line and eyeliner at the same time, is how I do my eyeliner, or not my eyeliner, my eye. Why do I keep saying I? My line art. Also something that I've been kind of experimenting with but have not quite nailed yet, I would say. I've been really inspired by a couple different artists like Alicia Nye and Blue Satan, and I forgot the third person's name. You know what I mean. Alicia Nye, Blue Satan, people like that who have like just these really Oh, Hey Mary Jane, that's the other person I was gonna say. Like really pretty, like Instagram model, freaking gorgeous lashes. But I am still struggling with making that look right in my style. This doesn't look terrible, but it's also something that I'm still trying to work on. They have tutorials for that I would totally recommend, because I'm trying to incorporate that into my style, but I have not quite nailed it yet. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about is the coloring of the eyes. So I'm going to alpha lock this layer and I'm going to set it to like a reddish color. For you guys already know, if you've seen my face painting tutorial and things like that, I just like to have a red tone because it meshes really well with almost any skin color. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm just going to plop a random base color on there. It doesn't really matter too much. And I'm going to show you guys how I color the eyes. So the whites of the eye, I never do solidly white. I almost always try to take into account what other colors are surrounding the character. So for example, if the character is surrounded by a lot of blue, I might go for like a blue sort of off-white color like this. In the iris, in the whites of the eye, because it just tends to look a little bit better than if I were to use just solid white. It also allows me to experiment a little bit more with the shadowing of the eye, as well as like the highlight. Sometimes I might throw in like a little bit of white across the eye. But yeah, so that's just something I generally do to add more interest to the illustration. The next thing that I do is I just plop down a base color. So I think I want to do green eyes for this character because it'll really help me demonstrate a new sort of technique that I've been implementing to my style. So I am going to throw, is this on a separate layer? Yes, I'm going to throw my base color down, and then I'm going to show you guys how I used to shade it and how I have been shading it lately. So if you've seen my hair tutorial or my skin tutorial, anything like that, you'll know the basic sort of way in which I choose colors. So that's looking a little too dark. This is what I generally tend to do. I'll like move it over and then down, so that I am sort of using a little bit of color theory, and I'm not just using a sort of more desaturated. So for example, let's say this is that's alpha locked, so I'll make a new layer. Let's say this is the color we're working with and I want to add a shadow to it. I'm not just going straight down on the color to make that. Of course, there's nothing wrong with that. It is technically a way that you can shade, but if you want to add more color, more interest to your illustration, I would recommend looking into color theory and sort of doing the little stair steps that I do when choosing colors. But lately I've been exaggerating them a little bit more. So this is what I would normally do. You can see it still just kind of looks like a darker green, a mid-tone green, and a lighter green, but lately I have been making it quite a bit more dramatic. So for example, I do have a layer I can show you guys. So this looks so pixelated. Oh my gosh, here, let me add it again. Where is it? It's right here. So this is the illustration. You guys might have seen this if you are on my Instagram. It was a commission that I did recently, but you can see in the eye, it starts out as this mid-tone blue, and then I shadowed it with a really dramatic like blue purple and bright cyan. So it's still sort of the same idea color theory wise as the previous way I just shaded it a second ago, but tipped up just a notch. I'm just pushing the shadows a little bit darker and a little more blue, and I'm making the highlights a little bit brighter and a lot more yellow. So going back to this layer, so let's say we're on this little blue color right here. I'm gonna add that in, and you can see just how vibrant and like how vivid that is. And I think it looks really pretty, and I've been really enjoying sort of experimenting with that. So I'm gonna pick something bright like that and blend it in a little bit more, and you can see how it's added even more color interest as well. Something I've also been doing, contrary to the little sketch here, is I have not been including the pupil in my line art. Instead, what I've been doing is I've been leaving it blank and then using the darkest of dark colors in that range of the eye. So whether it's brown, blue, purple, whatever color it is that you want to use for the eye, and using that, where have I gone? Using that as the iris color, or iris, I keep saying, I mix up iris and pupil so often, using that as the pupil color, and I think that also adds a subtle bit of interest. And then if I'm feeling like I'm rendering something and I feel like it's not particularly as shaded as I'd like it to be, sometimes I might take it around the outer edges as well. And of course by this point I've cleaned up the eye a little bit more, so you won't be seeing as much of this red, but I'm just gonna leave it there for time's sake. I might bring that over and around the edges as well. The reason I've also been really enjoying this technique is because previously, like, so for example, if I have the line art on there, it won't let me because the Apple locked it. If I have the line art on there and I am working here and I want to do the highlights at the end, I can't, because you can see that it either goes underneath. So if I have this set to multiply as I usually do, you can see it does this weird effect with the highlight that I do not like at all. Even still, if I have it set to normal, it goes underneath the pupil, which is not correct. But if I leave the pupil out of my line art, then I'm able to put the highlights in whenever, and everybody knows that's the best part. Speaking of highlights, however, let me back it up. So highlights are something that I also like to have a lot of fun with. So highlights can have a lot of different shapes. You can literally do whatever you want with them. So for example, if you're wanting a little bit more realism, you might like do kind of like a rectangle-y shape like this. If somebody's looking for or through a window, for example, and then you can kind of like erase it so that it looks a bit like a window, and then, you know, bring the opacity down a little bit. Or you can do a bunch of different shapes. So common shapes that I tend to use when working with illustrations are obviously this oval shape, but also, for example, if somebody's looking through a ring light, you'd see their highlight as just a straight up circle, which I think is a really pretty look. I adore that a lot. I also will add like these two little like stripes of highlight. I don't know why I started doing that recently, but I did. I also might start taking like even brighter color of this, but not quite white, around the pupil as well, to just bring some more interest into the eye. And yeah, and then sometimes you can do like fantasy shapes as well. Like for example, I saw somebody who bought a heart-shaped ring light and it made them have little hearts in their eyes, which is adorable, but you can also just do that for fun. Sometimes I might leave it as an outline, sometimes I might fill it in, sometimes I'll even do like a star type thing, and I also will do that with the pupil as well. So for example, if I am doing like a more fantasy type illustration, if I'm illustrating a character who isn't necessarily human, I might change it so that the iris itself, or not iris, oh my goodness, the pupil itself is a like fantasy color. So I'm gonna, or not color, fantasy sort of shape. So I'm gonna blend this out and then make the pupil like, let me hide this highlight. I might turn the pupil into a heart and I might fill it in, I might not. It's just for fun. Y'all are wobbling so much, so sorry. Yeah, it's just, you know, you can do whatever you want, make it look as fun as you want. This is something that really, really varies, but generally 90% of the time, I'm just gonna do a little circle, throw in an oval, maybe a little second one if I want the eyes to be particularly shiny, and again, maybe that outer thing. And that is how I have been coloring ice lately, and I think they've been looking really poppin'. Of course, the same thing applies to Copics as well, or whatever medium you want to use, if it's acrylics or anything like that. Just keep in mind the color wheel, the color theory, and that will help you choose the colors. Also, sorry about the lighting in this video. It is like mid-afternoon and the sun is in quite a strange spot. I hope it's not too distracting in this video. I'm sure my hands are quite overexposed in some shots. But yeah, that's generally how I color it. So the very last thing that I want to talk to you guys about is just my doodly art style. Sometimes I call it like my bean style, and that is I will just draw, so let's get a new layer going, a really like roundy head shape, not anything too detailed or too sharp even. I'll make like kind of bigger ears, stuff like that. Eyebrows might be a little bit more like doodly like this, not necessarily like a huge fancy shape. And then I will draw the upper eyelid and almost never the lower lid unless I like am really like trying to get like a solid expression that I can't get without the lower lid. But if I'm trying to draw, for example, somebody that's just like neutral or happy, I will draw just this circle. So the middle part here will serve as both the pupil but also the highlight for the eye. And then I might draw, you know, like just the eyebrow, something super basic. I won't get too feathery with it either, because again, this is supposed to be a more simplified style. I might at most draw one little eyebrow here. And then even though I don't have a lower eyelid line, or sometimes I might draw really thin eyelid like this, I will just throw in some little lashes, and then without it, it would just look like that. I'm gonna throw in a bottom line though, because that looks kind of cute. But yeah, then I just throw in a little bit of lashes, might still do an eyelid, but you can see how it kind of differs, of course, in shape in comparison to the, let's see, let's shrink it down to the same size and see how they're different. You can see how the style definitely changes, and this is for like more simplified stuff like I mentioned before, like my comics and stuff like that, because it's definitely a lot easier to color. It takes a lot less time than if I were to do a fully rendered thing for like 15 different panels. It's definitely a bit of a struggle. And then when it comes to coloring this, it's also a little bit more simple. So I'm gonna alpha lock that layer, and then let's say, for example, this person has black hair, so I'm gonna color the lash line that color as well as the eyebrow. And then when it comes to coloring the eyes, so I'm gonna go like a blue color. Let's do like a teal. I kind of like that color. So we're gonna go with this teal, get that black in for the lower lash line. And then rather than the crazy highlights that I was doing there, I'm just going to take the mid-tone that's also going to serve as the shadow. We're not necessarily gonna have a complete mid-tone, and then brighten that up, make it a little lighter, make that more towards the blue. And then I'm just gonna color in the bottom part of the eye, and then I'm going to blend it out a tiny bit, or sometimes I leave it solid. It depends on how I'm generally feeling, but those are for the most part how I color it. It's also gonna be, let me get on the, oh, I am on it. It's also gonna be like completely solid as well. It's not gonna be really sketchy. It's not gonna have like any sort of detail to it. It's just gonna be essentially a donut is what it's gonna be, with a solid line in the center. I got this style from somebody, but I don't know who it is. I don't know where I picked it up from, but I do really like to do it on the occasion. I think it does look really, really adorable. So yeah, that is basically how I draw eyes. I hope that it was helpful. I'm sorry if it was a little bit rambly, as my tutorials do tend to be. But yeah, if you guys are still struggling with anything, if you're still confused by anything that I mentioned in this video, and you'd like maybe a little bit more information, a little bit more of an explanation, feel free to leave a comment down below, or you can also DM me on Instagram as well, and I would be more than happy to clear them. What the heck is going on with my voice? Clear some things up, explain some things a bit further. But I hope you liked this video regardless. If you did, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment down below letting me know what it is you liked about this video, or if there is also something you would like to see me do. I've been running really and video ideas lately, so if there is anything that you guys have ever wanted to see me do, it is very likely that I will do it. So yeah, if there's ever anything you guys want me to do, be sure to leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Of course, I do want to give a big shout out to my patrons, Elise Thompson, Duran, Mandy, Sleeps, Puppy Paws, and Created by Twins. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for continuing to support me every single month. I love you guys so much. Speaking of Patreon as well, I do want to mention that January's designs from the Patreon exclusive tier, the Matcha Mail tier, will be available on Etsy either now or within a few days. They'll be up February 28th, of course, last day of February. And if you really enjoyed February's designs, those will be up at the end of March. Whenever the Patreon, what is the word? They get it first. The Patreon designs for the previous month go live. I will always be making a announcement for that on the community page, so if you've ever been curious when those are going to launch, it is going to be the last day of every month, but also there will be a community post so you can always be informed when those are or are not coming out. So yeah, again, thank you so much for watching this video. I love you guys so much, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.